Hi, I'm Somer Hackley,
And I am Zen Mak, and this is the Art of Search Hiring Manager series.
and these are stories and insights about all things hiring. Zen, it's just us again. How are you?
Hello! Very well. How are you?
I am good. Happy New Year, although I guess we can't say that anymore.
I know
But
we're approaching the territory where it's really old now.
I know, too old. But here we go. All right, so I have a question for you. You've seen many, many interview styles over many years. So, what do you like more? Open-ended or specific interview questions?
Ooh, that's a good nugget.
Especially when you have a limited time. Let's say it's a first round 30-minute interview. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. Oof. I can see for our listeners, open-ended question might sound something like, "Tell me your proudest moment in your career," right? Which is kind of anything and up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas something more directed could feel like, where have you managed three people? Okay, so you can like really specifically point to it. So I just wanted to set the ground
Mm-hmm.
framework for what we're talking about. I think the benefit of this open-ended question is it gives you a lot of insight into what's important for that person. So if you ask them this open-ended question and where they choose to give you an answer tells you what they value and what really is their, proudest moment or biggest problem they solved or some version of that. But if your interview only relied on open-ended question, I think you're going to spend a lot of time trying to answering the question for yourself, whether or not this person has the skills to fit the job. Vice versa, if you were to start an interview process and all you did was ask pointed and directed questions, how many times did you manage employees? Where have you generated $3.8 million in revenue? Give me the examples of when, then it becomes less about discovery and it's more about, you're checkboxing the interview question. So I think the approach is more to me a 70-30 breakdown. Like 70% of it is directed questions. You should have pre-prepared interview questions that pertain to the job you need them to do. But then the other 30% should be a little bit more free-flowing and open-ended because that gives you a lot of opportunity to investigate or discuss what's important for that person. That's just the kind of quick high-level thought there. What do you think, Somer?
Yeah, I like that percent breakdown. And I was going to say, as someone that specializes in technology exec recruiting, I find that candidates either are tech folks who get the business or they're business folks who get tech. There's always a blend, right? In any of these roles. It's just how you
Hmm.
grew up, what you get excited by, and people gravitate toward different things. And I think in any function. But in my world more recently, it's always this like business tech or product engineering, like that kind of combo, you
Yep.
know? And I love the open-ended for that because if you ask someone, so, tell me about your engineering depth or tell me about tell me about a time when you had to influence the business to do this sort of thing. Like, of course they'll tell you, but if you're like, tell me about what excites you or what have you worked on more recently that you're so proud of that you had to overcome an obstacle and do they give a tech example or do they give a business example? And I love knowing where they go because I can really
Hmm.
get to the heart of what motivates them, what excites them, and where they spend their time.
Yeah.
Also, I would say when I was a more junior recruiter, I would only ask the specific questions, 100%, right?
Yep.
Have you done
Yeah.
like how big is your hi person, pitch the role. How big is your team? Who do you
Yep.
report to? What are you working on? Just
Yeah.
tell me about a time when you did this thing. I'm like, they're great. And then they interview
Yeah.
and they're not great for the role.
Yeah.
And it's surprising, right? And it's surprising because the interviewer did not do that. They didn't ask them those specific questions. They asked more
Mhm.
vague questions or open-ended questions. And then the candidate did not hit on anything that was relevant for the role. And
Yeah.
so I think there has to be the blend, like you're saying. And the last thing I'll say is I love writing down if they totally omitted something that's important.
Mm.
Because later I'll be like, hey, when I asked you that question, you didn't mention XYZ. can you talk about that? And then I'd like to hear their reaction. And do they appreciate me bringing it up? And I'm trying to just give them the benefit of the doubt. But then if I do schedule them to meet the client, I'm like, hey, 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 remember that thing that you did not say? You need to say
Yeah.
that, like, because you have done it. You just didn't talk about it. So I think that's just helpful for
Oh.
people for prep too.
I love that. You're absolutely right, because sometimes we do a lot of work in that conversation. I mean, it sounds like a 30-minute conversation, but we're flying at different altitudes because we're not just asking the what, we're also asking the how. We're also looking at the why they did it and then the way they're doing it. So like one of the biggest things I kind of pay attention to, especially in video interviews, is when you ask a question about something, does the person kind of lean forward and light up, or was it a kind of a reserved answer? And while yes, there's lots of reasons for it, and I'm not, that great at interpreting everything all the time, we do end up picking up on those cues a little bit. So if there's any advice here, I think what you said, Soma, right? Writing down those questions, writing down what they've admitted, that's awesome. But also kind of giving yourself a little bit of room to see where the person goes with one open-ended question, but then making sure that you're redirected back to the directed questions so that at the end of the meeting, you can confidently say, I've asked this, I've gotten this answer. It's, satisfactory, dissatisfactory, whatever the outcome was, but the reality is you've asked it. Because many times I hear after the interview, well, can they do the job? I don't know, I'm not sure. Let me have such and such person interview them next. And then such and such person goes, I'm not sure. Let me ask such and such other person to interview them. And so that's what creates that 3 or 4 or 5 round interview process.
I agree. I like the takeaway. I think use both. 70/30 is probably the right mix. And only one or the other is not going to work. And yeah, and I feel like if you're kicking the can into the next person, maybe reflect on how much time you're spending on each of these open-ended and specific, and have the questions written down in advance. You don't have to be robotic about it, but yes, asking everyone the same questions in every conversation, there's just such benefit to that, which we can talk more about another time. So, Zen, so great to chat with you as always. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.